I don't know if I would have done this differently. I say this because, and we will get to this, but Susan and I had a huge falling out. And I actually had a number of people be like, does she know where you live? Do you feel safe? Do you think blah, 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 blah? And I was like, I really don't think that she'll try and come after me or anything like that. But I had a number of people ask me about that because our relationship ended. It actually resulted in her husband, Robert, intervening. And then I had a long phone call with him as well. And what he had to say was very interesting. So I am giving this intro, but I'm going to play full clips from my interviews with Susan and clips from my interviews with Robert to give you the whole picture of interviewing a killer, interviewing someone with a history of mental illness. Today, I am going to be talking about my experience interviewing a killer, that being Susan Anton. Something that is unique about this experience is that Susan actually was not convicted, so I can't say I interviewed a murderer because that's a legal term and I could get sued. Susan killed her husband, Travis, in 2003. If you've watched my YouTube videos, especially recently, you know that I wrote a book about this case and that I've been posting a lot on it because there has been a ton of misinformation out there for about 2 decades, and I want to set the record straight. And I thought that I would share my experience with you about what it was like interviewing her. Fun fact, this is the second time that I'm trying to record this because the first time my mic was off for the first half of the video. So I'm re-recording that now. If my makeup or hair or anything looks slightly different, that might be why. And I got some nice matcha tea with me. Delicious. There's honey in there. It's so good. I first spoke to Susan in the summer of 2019. At that point, I had been researching about her and her story for about 2 years. I had written a number of preliminary chapters. I had a list of people I needed to talk to and reach out to, and a list of documents that I definitely needed for this book to be completed. And yeah, I emailed her and she got back to me the next day, shockingly enough. Going into that interview, I just knew that she killed him and I knew that she used the shotgun. Did not know the circumstances surrounding it. So going into this, ultimately, I didn't know what happened. It wasn't until years after I did my initial interview with her that I finally got the police report, which I had been told by local law enforcement was misplaced or that they didn't have it. A local journalist who I wrote about in the book, Joseph McCain, told me that the local police department had misplaced it. I was able to get a copy of it and learned that she actually killed her husband with a shotgun, the shotgun he taught her how to use while he was asleep. She shot him 3 times in the chest while he was asleep in bed. Based on the information I had at the time, my understanding of Susan's story was that she was an artist who wanted to be famous, she wanted a big career, and her career was shortchanged when she was forced to kill her husband, and that she was stuck in an abusive relationship. Susan has been open about her life and open on the internet since the mid-90s. She really was at the forefront of the internet. During my research of her and her story, before I interviewed her, this has to deal with my preparation. I had a list of questions and stuff, and I had what I wanted my focus to be. I had found a blog that Susan wrote in 2013, so a decade after she killed her husband. It's a WordPress blog called Invisible Survivor. And in this blog, she talked about her mental health, her issues with identity, her relationship with Travis. She mentioned the grand jury's decision to not indict her. She talked a lot about her mental state and fear, feeling very fearful at the time, and how she struggled with her memories. So because I had that information and I could quote her posts, I focused on the information I didn't have. So I didn't want to push her about what happened that night. I really wanted to take the interviewing slow and then potentially get there. Hopefully. This was my first interview and I was 26 at the time. And I really feel looking back, I'm 31 now, and I don't know if I would have done this differently. I say this because, and we will get to this, but Susan and I had a huge falling out. And I actually had a number of people be like, does she know where you live? Do you feel safe? Do you think blah, 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 blah? And I was like, I really don't think that she'll try and come after me or anything like that. But I had a number of people ask me about that because our relationship ended poorly. It actually resulted in her husband, Robert, intervening. And then I had a long phone call with him as well. And what he had to say was very interesting. But I'm going to play full clips from my interviews with Susan and clips from my interviews with Robert to give you the whole like picture of interviewing a killer, interviewing someone with a history of mental illness, and, you know, then writing a book about it and my whole experience. I just wanted to share this, and I also felt like, you know, some of you might find it interesting. Ultimately, as a result of reading the WordPress and hearing what she had to say about that, I wanted to fill in blanks. So when I talked to her, my whole goal was to focus on this identity. Who is she? I wanted to focus on her life as an artist. What were her desires? What did she want? And I had a big focus on her childhood and her upbringing and her family life. What was that like? And ultimately, what were her goals in life? How did she meet Travis? That kind of thing. So that was my main focus in talking to her, and also to talk to her about what she did afterward, like her mental health. Was the state able to get her mental health care? Because, you know, there were a lot of rumors online about what happened, and she wrote a little bit about this on her blog. So I did ask her about her WordPress blog and some other things. So this is my experience interviewing a killer. I emailed Susan the morning of July 18th, 2019, and she got back to me the very next day. We emailed back and forth for a couple of days before we ended up doing our phone interview. After a few months, things really fell apart and our communication ended on November 12th, 2019. So all in all, just shy of 4 months of communication. My first email to Susan was 10:31 a.m. I introduced her to myself. I told her about my intention for writing a book. At the time, it was like a true crime artist's biography, basically. Initially, the story was about an artist who found herself in a horrible situation where she was forced to kill her husband, and she had all these fans and people, like mystery surrounding her, and people wanted to know what happened. And 2 decades have gone by, and I felt like, wow, you know, if she's going to talk to me, I could get this exclusive interview with her and fill in all these blanks. And ultimately, that's kind of where I was going with it. Obviously, I didn't want to sensationalize anything. I really just wanted the truth personally, because as an artist myself, I loved her self-portraits. It's really what drew me to her story to begin with, was her artwork. So I wanted to be respectful of that. I felt like clearly art has been a part of her life, her whole life, as far as I know. So that's where I was coming at this interview with. And she got back to me the next day, and this is what she said. Thanks for the message and encouragement. I've been struggling with the effects of RRMS for the last couple of years, so life has been like a slow-mo carnival ride. After your note, I spent the rest of the day trying to recover the work I've been able to do since 2013, along with the old material. My deviant art, my new age, Susie Ange, mainly has my sketches, which now seems super difficult for me. So I'll make another spot for the self-portraits to keep them separate. Many blessings, and perhaps one day we can arrange a meeting. Take care, Susan. Smiley face. I emailed her back and I gave her my condolences about her diagnosis of having multiple sclerosis, because as an artist, that has to be devastating. You're using your hands, she's not going to be able to draw, you know, and there's no cure for it. It's horrific, honestly, life-threatening illness. I gave her my condolences and then wanted to kind of do a blast from the past, but also like share research I had found with her, because I thought I had found all these old photos and I thought she might like to see them. So I shared a couple of these photos that I found of her in a newspaper. Then I asked her about a day and time that might work best for her to do a phone interview. Just 4 hours later, Susan responded with this update on her health, and then she gave me a little commentary on the photos that I sent her, and then she said, "How about 8 p.m. Central Monday?" At this point, that was just 2 days away, and I was super excited. I was like, wow, I got this interview. Like, this is amazing. I felt really nervous about it too. You know what I mean? I wasn't really sure what to expect, but she was being super nice and gracious. So I thought that we were building a good rapport. In between the time, like over those couple days until Monday, we exchanged a couple emails. And what hit me right off the bat was how freaking transparent she was. I was honestly shocked at how open she was about her life, and I will read some of these for you. We mostly talked in those couple days. We mostly talked about the healthcare system and how problematic it is in the United States, and she said, the healthcare system in the US seems a monster, fueled in large by the major pharmaceutical and insurance companies. Other diagnoses I've accumulated along the way are ADD and depression, along with much of the American population. So I didn't ask about diagnoses. I think she does a lot of mind reading and projecting, and she's assuming what I want to know and telling me. And that honestly is wild, and it's good for me because it gave me a lot of information that I, would otherwise, especially this early on, literally we're talking like a day into talking to each other, and she's volunteering information about her mental health diagnoses. So that's not something I could ever imagine myself doing, and it's also not a question I would ask somebody unless they themselves prompted it that early on. If I had been talking to someone and we had been doing multiple interviews and we eased into the conversation about mental health and stuff, of course I would, invite them to share. But I noticed that right off the bat, that she was very, very willing to just talk about herself. So I thought that boded well for the rest of the interview. And it kind of did. Ultimately, I was nervous about talking to her, and I kept having to remind myself, this is a woman who has killed somebody and who has a long history of mental illness. And for all intents and purposes, she is a complete stranger. So you have to be, on guard about what you're also sharing with her and how you're going about doing this, because I kind of wanted to be her friend, but I also wanted to remain, ethical, though I do feel like when you are intentionally engaging people who have killed somebody and you're intentionally trying to get an interview, you're already in a gray territory. That's just how it is. There's no this is okay and this is not okay. I just feel kind of that way in general when it comes to journalism, because it's not, because you're dealing with particular individuals who don't adhere to social norms as it is. Once you engage with them, you're already in the gray. And that's fine, honestly. I think it's kind of a more comfortable place to be. It's not all good or all bad, because I don't think that that's realistic. But I had to keep reminding myself that this woman has killed somebody. You don't know her. In an email back to me, she talked about her ballet class when she was a little kid and how she felt like that greatly influenced her artwork. She told me also why people started calling her Susie as a nickname. And then she talked to me about her WordPress, Invisible Survivor. If you want to read that whole email exchange, subscribe to murderpm.com and gain access to this article. The link for it is in the description of this video. MurderPM is my platform, and that would definitely help to support me, so I'd greatly appreciate it. And this information is exclusive to Murder Pop because these are my personal emails with Susan Anton. I will read you a section of what she said about her WordPress blog. She has a habit that I noticed of starting something and then deleting it, starting a new account, deleting it, and she ended up deleting her WordPress account, and I wanted to know why. And so she said, I quit posting to Invisible Survivor after I realized there was no way I could speak about December 2003. That's when she killed her husband. I did not want to become a marketing poster child in the years following. There was such a mountain of conditions going on. I can still only remember I can still only remember pieces like some sort of nightmare puzzle. But with time, I realized that I'd had a severe mental break on December 2nd, 2003. I've tried my best to hold myself together until the children reached adulthood, which is basically now. On the day we were supposed to do the interview, I got an email from her asking for a rain check at like 3 p.m. and I was super disappointed. But this exchange was also weird because this is how she worded it. Rain check if you want. Today has just been a day, and I thought you were tired from the weekend, so how about we make it another day/time? This was super weird to me because I was not tired from the weekend. I was so freaking ready to do this interview and like amped up and nervous and like had my list of questions and I was like, oh my God, I'm interviewing her today, that kind of thing. So I thought that that was strange. And I was also disappointed because I was nervous that, okay, if she's backing out today, is she just gonna keep backing out? She can decide not to do this. I emailed her back and I said that I was totally fine, but if she needed more space and time, then that is, just let me know what works for her and like take all the time that she needs. And she responded, I felt pretty wiped out myself. Take care and my apologies, Susie. That's where it clicked with me that she is projecting because she said, you must be tired. And I'm like, I'm not. And then she emailed me back and she's like, oh, well, I'm tired. And I said, no worries, like just take all the time you need and let me know about another date and time. My response to Susan is in the Murder PM article. So if you want to read that, go subscribe. Susan got back to me that next morning and said she would let me know about the interview by 6 p.m. that night. And I was like, okay, cool. And in her email, she also listed all of the medications that she had been on over the years, which blew my mind. We had only been talking for a few days at this point, and I could not believe how open she was being. I also, I'm not qualified to analyze anybody or whatnot, but to me that came across as very like people-pleasing behavior because, oh, well, maybe she let me down by not doing the initial interview and she feels outside external social pressure. So then she wanted to give me like something of high value to make up for. I don't know. I'm just trying. I was just thinking like, wow, I can't believe she's telling me about all the medications she's been on. Like, we haven't even talked on the phone yet, so that was really wild to me. Her email said, since 1993, I'd been involved in different group and individual therapy sessions with psychologists and accredited counselors, as well as taken all manner of prescribed medications of varied doses, including Prozac, Effexor, Ritalin, and Lexapro. At long last, I am free and clear with an amazing support system. I still have artistic ideas, just coming to mind differently and more slowly to fruition. Again, I was really just in shock that she was being so open with me. We hadn't even talked on the phone, and she's telling me about her diagnosis and all the medications she's been on and stuff like that. I responded to her and I said, thank you for being so open, by the way. It's very important to me to have the most honest representation of you. I eternally appreciate your kindness and candid conversation. And then I gave her a phone number that she could reach me at in case she wanted to talk that night, and she did. Our phone call took place on Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019, and that lasted almost 2 hours. The start of it, a lot of it, I was trying to ease into it and ended up talking a lot about her artwork. Those interviews, looking back, in my opinion, that section of the interview isn't as interesting as the rest of it. Just kind of trying to slowly start out with her and talk to her about her process and why she decided to, she wrote about how much she loved the artist Cindy Sherman and how in her art classes she wanted to be a self-portrait artist. Then I talked to her more, as we talked, it was more about the motivations behind her art, and I kind of tried to segue into talking about her family and stuff like that. So I'm gonna play a clip for you, and the reason I picked this is because it shaped a very early narrative of the book. Susan basically claims that she was a victim of identity theft. So this really shaped, when she said this to me, it really shaped like the whole narrative of the book. This was about a killing took place, and this was really truly about identity theft. Her husband stealing his own wife's identity. And I was just like, wow, I can't even imagine. You think you know someone. Now I realize now that, Susan's saying that Travis stole her artist alias Delia Day. Now I realize that there's not even proof that Susan came up with that name herself. She started using it after her and Travis got together. How do we know he didn't come up with the name? He came up with other aliases and other, he loved marketing. That's basically what his thing was. How do we know he didn't come up with it? Ultimately, we don't. This clip is 9 minutes and 52 seconds long, and I'm not going to interrupt it. So here it is. The journals and poetry from Ideal Delia, you authored all of that. And then some of it was essentially just copy pasted onto the Delia Day site. So it's such a strange, it must be so strange for you to essentially have your work and this character stolen,
Yeah, it was almost, people talk about identity theft, which, is, I don't know how to relate it other than that. Because the little poems that I had, as images, as like JPEGs, little short poems, I did those and had them on. I don't remember. I think, I had them still at Interport time. But just.
There was one poem specifically that I'm thinking of that I found really interesting. It was called Stripper. And it made me wonder if you were interested in kind of sexual exhibitionism and bondage as a metaphor. And then as you became interested in utilizing that, it just kind of was turned into something else.
Yeah,
Did you feel manipulated into that?
I definitely, back in the 92 period, definitely had some identity problems, some identity issues to work through. So, that was probably, I don't remember when I wrote that, but yeah, I think that was, I sort of remember that. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say a lot of your work, some of it you're in like collars and, the like. And I was curious to know if you found these interesting for portraits because they were very striking and that the interest was on your part artistic and like curious, and then on the part of Travis it was more like malicious, like it just like not seeing eye to eye. I was just curious as to how like I don't know where your interests lied in regards to all of it.
See, I don't really know how to, go back through, stuff. I had done one piece in when I was So yeah, this was like probably one of the hardest times before I finally let go of Mississippi. I had done and completed a piece. I don't know if I've posted it, but it's a misconceptions of me. Is what I did when I was after being in the van and then finding a place to stay, and then just the influx of memories. This place was just
There was
just like, wow, I just don't even believe that I could make it through being at that place. And and yeah, so the accidental life stuff, but yeah.
If you could go back, what you seem like you're very focused on moving forward, but if you could go back, what do you think you would tell yourself at that time? Just in regards to art or in regards to mental health, what do you feel like just the whole crazy experience of all of this kind of taught you as a person?
Man, that is super hard. Because, I mean, obviously, if you could look back or go back, you can think of things that you would change. But if you can't even think, oh, I don't even know, what I could do to change, or, if I had known, what, man, I just don't. I tried to, I don't know how many years back, I tried to, so sometime in the, 2006, 7, maybe 8, 9, tried to, say, hey, I'm really sorry that, stuff went down the way it did. But, I wish you and your family well. To Marlon and his family.
To what? I'm sorry, I missed that.
To, I kind of extended that, to, Marlon and his family, because of, the stuff that went down there.
What happened with Marlon and his family?
Well, as I said, my mother had much involvement in you don't need to, stay with him, yada, 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 all the negative stuff. And, before I really realized it, she had driven me to a lawyer's office to write up a divorce and paid for it, and then, it was just sort of, after that, it sort of, just trying to figure out, what was happening, which way was up, So,
Did
go ahead.
your mother approve, I guess, of Travis, or was she always just very against uh, the people that you were interested in?
Um, she always ended up being very, negative toward, anyone I was with. Um,
It became clear to me that Susan struggles with communication. She's not a clear communicator. She doesn't answer questions directly, but rather she talks around them. She mentions a piece of art called Misconceptions of Me. And that is this piece, I believe. I say I believe that it's called Misconceptions of Me because I had everything labeled perfectly on an old computer that died. And when I say died, it's because I spilt water all over it. It was a very sad day. Uh, but I had sent myself a ton of stuff. So then I was re downloading that from like messaging and texting it to myself, and the names are not attached to it. So I've done my best to reorganize it, and I believe that this is called Misconceptions of Me, and this is what she was talking about. And it makes sense. She's wiping away the words insecure, masochist, and self destructive off of her forehead. So Susan admits to having her own identity issues and then says that this is what I thought was interesting. So she has her own identity issues and then experiences identity theft with an alias and of obviously actual images of her. When Susan said that she would go back and basically apologize to Marlon's family, that Marlon is her first husband. I did not know what that meant. I had not interviewed Marlon yet. To find out what actually happened later was very interesting. Basically, she met Travis and cheated on her first husband, Marlon, with Travis, and he walked in on them. Susan wasn't clear about any of that, so the answer that she gave to that was very enlightening to me. She does finally talk about Travis as her introduction to BDSM. This is a much shorter clip. It's only 3 minutes and 4 seconds, and here it is. Did you feel that part of the identity issues that you were having were because of the control that like your mother tried to control you so much you didn't have space to figure out the kind of person you were? So then kind of just falling into this like identity of being in a BDSM relationship, but you didn't actually have time to figure out if you're even really truly interested.
that, that never, you know, didn't know what that was, had no exposure to that before, I'm trying to think what, the, like, after, I had moved in with him. So, I,
When was it introduced into your relationship? Was it just you had a normal relationship for a few years and then all of a sudden?
see, whenever, whenever the divorce thing happened, and then it was like not having a place to stay. So, he said I could move into there, and he had like this stack of magazines, like the BDSM, effectively. The magazines were, when I was cleaning up the place, found them And I said, what are those? And he claimed that, oh, those were my brothers. I don't even know what that is. Right? It totally didn't, in my naivety, I totally, believed, looking back, I'm going, wait, there's a stack of magazines in the corner of this guy's place that you just move into. And he says, oh, I don't know what those are. They're not mine. I'm going, how did I possibly believe that?
When I asked her, do you feel like some of the issues you were having made it more confusing to navigate a BDSM relationship? Her response, and I don't think that was my exact wording, sometimes I actually found myself like being very wordy. Like I had questions written out that were succinct, and then I would be like almost explaining more because of the silences or the pauses or whatever. That was just on me I was almost like trying to cater to how she felt, which is my own personal problem. I'm not putting that on her. I don't know. But she said that never, didn't know what that was, had no exposure to that before. Before I'm trying to think what, the, like after I had moved in with him, there were a lot of instances like this in that 2-hour interview where I was just like, this isn't even usable. So it was kind of frustrating. Because her answers often sounded like this, I decided not to push that topic further. If she wanted to discuss it, she could bring it up. Moving on to our emails. Following the phone conversation, we emailed for a few months. Actually, even later that evening, she emailed me about her tattoos. I felt that our interviews were in a very gray area because we were kind of becoming friends in a way. Not really, but kind of. I ended up sharing my artwork with her and asking her what she thought about it, and told her a little bit about my life. And obviously I was still asking her questions along the way, and she was pretty open with me. Sometimes though, she would email me things and then email me back and ask me not to include certain things. Because this started happening, it got to a point where I felt uncomfortable, and I essentially really backed off on the emailing. And like 2 weeks went by and I just did not say anything to her or respond at all. And we'd at least been talking for a couple times a week, over email. So I really just wanted to back off so I could focus more objectively and write. And after some silence, after that couple weeks of silence, she emailed me and said, "I hope you're doing well, smiley face." And then she said, "I know we haven't spoken in a while, but as the autumn weather seems to be ushering cool weather and holidays, I wanted to wish you and your bunch good thoughts and things, smiley face." And then she asked me about my pets. I had 4 rats and a puppy at that time, and I love animals. And she had drawn a picture of a cat, and that I had asked her about the cat, and it led to this whole conversation about animals. Anyway, so she asked how they were doing, and then she wrote, "For your amusement, I'm attaching my daughter's scrapbook art of my childhood and my pets." So she was giving me something she knew I would consider high value, childhood photos of herself, which she had never done before. She had never sent me any photos of herself. I saw her websites with her artwork and stuff, but I thought it was interesting that we had been talking pretty consistently, and then I took a step back, and then it really brought me back in. Like, that totally worked. If you're interviewing somebody, you want to get as much information as possible, and you want really, really good information on them that is exclusive, basically. I don't know how to word it any other way. That's just the flat out truth. You're writing a book on someone, or you're a journalist and trying to get a story. That's what you want. So she gives me that, and then in the email, she concludes that email with this: "Take care, S. P.S. I don't think I've ever asked, but can I read your book when you're finished?" This is kind of the beginning of the decline. Of course she could read the book when I was done with it. But what she was getting at, and we talked more about this, is she wanted to read it before it was published. She wanted to be able to review it and essentially decide what was okay and not okay for her story. And she actually called it that a couple times. Anyways, moving on to this next part. I want to talk about broaching difficult topics when interviewing an unstable person. So Susan seemed to struggle a lot when talking about anything related to BDSM. I had a hard time telling if she was being genuine or not. Was she evading my questions, or was she experiencing some kind of anxiety response, or both? There is no way for me to really know. It was complicated. And then in October, I got an email that essentially ended our communications. They didn't end there exactly, but it basically led to a complete breakdown of the relationship that we had built. And this was really weird for a number of reasons. Firstly, it was out of the blue. It was a non sequitur. The previous email that she wrote me had nothing to do with this. This just seemed like she had this emotional response and she had to type something out and send it to me. Like it wasn't part of a conversation we were already having. And it was very out of the blue. The thing that she had sent me before I got this email, I got that 11 days before this, and it was about a job interview she did with Bruce Rubin in 1994, where they were in a carriage ride and she accidentally spilled coffee all over him. Or I don't know, she spilled it all over the carriage or herself or something. It was a very funny story that didn't make it into the book. So 11 days later, she sends me this. This is Sunday, October 27th at 8:41 a.m. So before I read this email, I just want to clarify a couple things. Ian is Travis's first son, and he's disabled. He had spina bifida and grew up, essentially having multiple spinal surgeries, and it was in a wheelchair. So Susan was his stepmother for a while, and then he actually went to live with Travis's mom and was not at the house when Susan killed Travis. So only Susan and Travis's two children, Della and Neil, were present at the time that happened. Then after Susan killed Travis, after a grand jury failed to indict her and she remarried, 10 years went by and she got divorced again. And then Travis's mom let her come live with her. Travis's mom literally took in her ex-daughter-in-law who killed her own son. Incredible on its own, but I had to mention that because those two people and that event is mentioned in this email. There's a lot more context in the book, but I just wanted to say that before I read the email for you. Okay, so I got this email Sunday, October 27th at 8:41 a.m. In retrospect, on the eve of menopause, I was ill-prepared to be trying to work as caretaker for King Ian. I did everything I could at the time to help out Travis's mom, as I did appreciate her forgiving kindness. However, I wasn't faring well with no vacation from Ian. I often felt like a sailboat in a hurricane. I know I've made a ton of mistakes in this life, but I would appreciate no more of this tiring artist biography ruse. I tend to think that she and Travis would have enjoyed their I think she meant great-grandson, and great-granddaughter. They just went ahead before the rest of us. Take care. So much to unpack here. Aside from what she accused me of, what do you mean Travis just went ahead before the rest of you? You killed him. You literally shot him in his sleep. He didn't die of natural causes. That was very, very, very detached to me. She was very dismissive of Travis's disabled child. And the fact that she was willing to call him King Ian didn't come across to me in a good way. Anyway, so the artist biography ruse was super weird. I wonder if I actually don't know, because I felt like I was very straightforward with her about this. it was an artist biography. It was about her life. Over time, Susan seemed more and more anxious about the book, particularly about what exactly the book would include, eventually leading her to ask if she could read it when it was completed, but before it was published. I then received a message from her husband, Robert, who asked if we could talk. And of course, I agreed. I was curious what he would have to say about it. My phone call with Robert was a little awkward. At times during our call, he actually insisted that I seemed upset. He's like, I can hear the tears in your voice. And I was just sitting there like, not crying, no tears. It was super weird. But I didn't say anything. I was just like, I'm fine, you know? Maybe he's used to having to cater to Susan's emotions, and so it was just a habit. I don't know. But here is a clip of the initial part of the phone call for you. Hi. Is this Robert? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
Okay. How are you?
Doing okay. Just dealing with my wife. I'm actually at work. I'm doing a security job, so it's I was trying to stay awake. So actually, you woke me back up, so it's a good thing.
Okay. So I work overnight too, so I understand.
Well, let me say, my wife, she has a lot of trust issues, especially with her mom trying to do all this weird stuff and like in the stuff she's been through. So I just hope you don't take it personally.
No, I don't. She probably showed you the email that I responded with. I was really going into this, I never even expected to be able to talk to her. So I could see kind of I could see kind of like deleting artwork and then re-uploading it, deleting it, kind of just the back and forth and not feeling comfortable. That's essentially the opposite of how I wanted this to go, but I respect it. And if she just wants to cut off communication, that's fine.
Yeah, but her thing is about this book, like, I guess she doesn't want to be in it anymore. I don't know if that's possible. Or for her, she has a lot of people that still try to find her, about her past. And, like, some people, I don't know, like, they were fans of the site back in the day. See, she tried to when I first met her, she tried to tell me about it. But I was never into that stuff, and I was like, I don't care about that stuff. I don't care what you did in your past. I don't even care now. I just judge her every day, but, how today is. So, but she still has people who still try to find her, like, they're into that stuff, and I guess believe what her husband was saying and stuff like that, so it still makes her feel uneasy. Then her mom didn't help her how she treated her at the time also. If that kind of makes sense to you.
It does. I had talked to her about essentially
She's so scared to talk on the phone too. I mean, like, I think some of this would have been relieved if I could ever get her used to just talking on the phone instead of typing. I mean, like, she probably would understand that you're a good person and you're actually just writing this book. But, like, I know that she thinks that, I think maybe she thinks, like, her mother-in-law, her mother, or I'm not exactly sure, like, what you think she thinks,
I'm not sure, I thought we were on the same page. So we spoke for about 45 minutes, and Robert made it very clear that Susan had paranoia and some emotional issues. He also made it clear that Susan was now completely uncomfortable with this book. One thing that he said that stuck out to me, and I have the whole quote in the article if you want to go check that out, links in the description, but he said, When Susan talks about this stuff or her past, she starts getting weird. He didn't completely elaborate, but I absolutely saw her start to get weird. I saw that as her being paranoid, and it made me wonder if there were things that she didn't want me to uncover about her and her story. The most confusing part about all of this to me was when Robert said that Susan was unsure if I was writing the book just about her. I was very clear with Susan that I was writing a biography about her. She even made a joke about having a Lifetime movie made about her. There's more details about that and emails and photos if you want to go subscribe and read the article in Murder Pop. It is linked below, Murder Pop magazine. Honestly, all of this kind of made me feel bad for Robert for dragging him into this, but it seemed like he really felt pressure to be a mediator for his wife's feelings. And at the end of the day, that doesn't have anything to do with me exactly, but I did, none of this would have happened if I wasn't asking questions or trying to tell this story or figure out what happened. But then again, this goes back to Susan having free will to do whatever she wanted. In my interview with Robert, that he even says that she wished she didn't tell me as much as she did. Here is the last clip I'm going to play from my interview with him. It's 6 minutes and 33 seconds. I think that it's, interviewing people and figuring out a process of how to be the most respectful, what kind of boundaries other people need, what kind of boundaries I need to uphold. It's a learning process, and I just
I think you picked a hard subject with my wife because every day's a struggle with me with her. But she's a good person, but you just really have to kind of know how to talk to her and just let her feel at ease. Even when you think she's at ease, sometimes she just surprises you. She's like, even with me, she's like, hey, so I want you to know, don't take it too hard, okay?
No, I'm not. Honestly, like, I understand it. I felt like, okay, that's when I saw the email, I just,
I really don't know what she said in the email to you because I didn't read it. But,
it was really confusing.
Oh, what did she say? Or do you remember anything that was really confusing? Maybe I can help you understand.
Well, I think I understand that she wrote 2 paragraphs and jumped topics. There were short paragraphs. The topics just jumped around, and then all of a sudden she wrote a sentence about how she thought that the book was like a ruse or a trick or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then she switched topics again. So
she had her family, like her mom, trying to commit her at one time and take the kids away, and then trying to get people to do things to her. So that's where that comes in.
No, I understand. I think that's all really messed up. And I think that she should just be at home in the comfort of her home where it's cozy and safe and just live her life. I just kind of decided to leave her alone at this point.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'm not mad at you or anything, so don't think I am.
No, I don't. I think that you're really kind and upfront, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, my life, it has nothing, what she's been through has nothing like that, but I came from a, let's say, dysfunctional family as well. My dad was, like, super crazy, and, but he's gone, and I don't even think about him anymore, but, so, I think I had a sister, but she passed away, so I've had all kind of weird stuff happen to me.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm just, I just want you to know she's good. I'm doing my best every day to keep her good and keep her. But I'll tell her that, the book is not a ruse, that you're someone that really genuinely loves her artwork, and that's just where this is, what sparked the interest. So I just let her know. Like,
yeah, I didn't totally understand what she meant. Like, I thought she meant that I was talking to her under the guise of writing a book and that I wasn't actually writing a book. So I actually don't know what she meant by that.
Well, it's a two-part thing. She's been through that, with the husband that did all that stuff to her. Then her family, her mom treated her that way, trying to get people. Then after that, then she has these weird people trying to contact her, and they're like, "Well, I want to help you. I love your artwork," but they're really not. They just wanted, I don't know, some kind of weird fix or something. So they told her that, about, I want you to do a commission, and it's not really what they really wanted.
I actually really did. I have art all over my walls.
No, I'm not putting you in that category.
Oh, no, I don't think you are. I was just saying, like, that's messed up, and I totally understand how it's difficult for her to be able to tell the difference. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, she's had people, like, him, then her own family, then people are trying to say, well, I'm here to help you, but, they got their own agendas, and, like, even when she met me, she said, I was waiting for the longest time for you not to be nice, and, the other food, the other foot to drop is what she said. Me turn into Mr. Hyde or Jekyll, I was like, basically what you see is what you get.
Yeah, I think that's hard to find.
Yeah, I mean, I don't yell at her. I don't get upset with her. I'm very patient. Like, she's even taught me patience. Like, I used to be like a hurry person. Now, I'm just super patient with her. So, but I took her to her disability case, and we're still waiting for judgment on that. So we'll see how that goes.
I hope that it all works out the way that you guys need it to. It makes her life easier.
Because it's hard for me to work, because she needs my attention a lot. So even, this kind of job is, like, it's still hard for her, but usually she tries to sleep while I'm here. So I hope we get it. That way she can get other help. I want her to find someone to talk to, but that hasn't always been the best case with them. They've had therapists, and they feel like they didn't really do a good job, or they didn't really care.
Oh my gosh, I've talked to so many therapists. Most of them are idiots. I think that they actually have their own problems, so they become therapists to, like, help themselves. It's weird.
Her son feels the same way. He's like, I don't like therapists. I'm like, I'm not gonna make you go, but if your mom wants to go, I always tell him. I always try to get him to come with us everywhere and try to get him out of the house, but it's kind of a struggle with him as well.
After talking to her husband, Susan responded in an email and said, obviously, I've had mental health issues since the late 80s. And that was essentially the last time that we spoke. After this email, I had a feeling that her decades-long habit of ghosting different social media platforms and stuff like that was about to happen again. And the week of Halloween, she not only deleted her DeviantArt account, but she also changed her name on Facebook. And then she also made a post on her Facebook saying that if you hear anything about a book, I'm taking no part in it. And I took a screen capture of that, and it was on my old computer, and I could not find it for the life of me, and I wish I could share it with you. But then she deleted her entire Facebook. So, yeah. I have not seen anything from her online since that. Maybe I'm to blame for prying. I think that part of this is just the cost of researching and writing. You have to ask hard questions to get real answers. Maybe I'm unpopular for doing that. I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with my brain. Robert was nice to speak with me, and though at times the conversation was tense and awkward, I do appreciate him reaching out to try and solve this problem. But ultimately, I said I was going to take a step back from communicating with Susan because it seemed to be going in a not good direction. Essentially, all of this happening, I always felt that there was more to the story, but I didn't know what exactly. I knew that I still had a lot more work to uncover, but honestly, interviewing Susan really made me feel that there was more to this story. All of the ups and downs and her emotional stuff and the communication problems. I just knew that there was more to it. I didn't have all the facts yet, and it was years until I finished it, but it is finished now. Anyways, I hope you found this interesting. If you have any questions or comments, let me know below. And if you want to know more about this, click the link in the description and become a subscriber to Murder Pop Magazine, which is my platform. You can get a copy of the book by subscribing and read a ton of behind the scenes articles with exclusive information. This was my first time experience interviewing a killer. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Victoria Evans. Be safe out there.